All right. Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. We've mixed it up this morning. What a mess. Let me get that down. It's going to get on my nerves. All right, guys. I hope you're doing okay. Get a little this. Yeah, it looks a little bit better if you can see it. All right, guys. Good morning. Welcome to the Howler Mouse Show. I am Howler Mouse. I've decided that I'm going to multitask this morning, right? So we are downstairs in the den, right? And I have comics boxes everywhere. Okay. I have my old school TV with a DVD player in it, a few choice DVDs hanging out here, as you can see. I've got some harsh light going on over there. Season two of Land of the Lost hanging out here. A little bit of Blade Runner, your pick of four movies laying around here. And in the floor beside me, I have tons of books that I am rebagging. Um, we have this many new bags and more comics than that's going to fit this morning. So I figured we'll do a little show while I kind of go through some of this stuff, right? Let me go over here and get a little bit of this harsh light off of here right there. Be right back, guys. Oh. All right, and we're back. Hopefully, you can also hear me. And we have our coffee this morning in our fantastic, lovable Americana, if you will, peanut smug. A little instant Folgers goes well with comics. Currently, this is a rainy Sunday show. We had some rain the other night. Supposed to be having our first snow of the winter coming up, even though it's still fall. And I figured I would just hang out at the house today and get some of this stuff organized and get it up and talk a little bit about comics here. Because Sunday mornings of the past was when we would go out and it'd be too much rain, too harsh of weather to go outside. So we would get a stack of comic books, jump on top of the bunk bed, hear the rain on the roof as I read through a bunch of comics, magazines, whatnot, whatever. A lot of quiet time and stuff like that. So I always thought that was very cool. So I hope you guys are enjoying your weekend, and we'll just see what happens here. Usually I do these earlier in the morning, but we got a lot of things going on. So one of the things that I'm rebagging here is I went through the entire. Is it here? Yeah, yeah. I've gone through about half of my Grant Morrison box. That's what is back here. A Grant Morrison box, some John Byrne stuff, crossovers, things like that. Just a few things I've brought down. Oh, also have magazine racks and stuff. And I'm finding things like this that I enjoy. They're not keys. Maybe they deserve to be bagged or new bag. Maybe they don't, but I put in there. There's nothing like an Animal story of Vertigo fame of the '90s, where we see a tribe of Bigfoot with their shaman doing some of their magic in an Animal Man story. All right. Um, we also find Silver Age books that we didn't know were salvageable. Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos number 76, and this is the glamour side of collecting and dealing with your comics. That you usually end up making a mess in order to clean up a mess and get a little bit more organized, right? That is also the fun of this hobby, is where you can slow down and really just enjoy your books a little bit. Sometimes this takes longer because as I go through these boxes and I find things, I'm sort of like, yeah, I might want to read that or I might flip through it. You just never know. Right. So as we go through this Grant Morrison box, some of the things that I have to rebag, is definitely the rest of this Doom Patrol run. I probably bagged, I don't know. The last time I had bags, I pulled out the Morrison box. There was a bit more that needed to be done. And I think I just bagged maybe, I don't know, I had enough for 18 or 19 issues. That's not going to do it. Some of the other things I found that I need to bag, and we might as well talk about here because this goes with what I'm reading also, that I'll pop over there, are these books. These I bought off the rack as they came out. Let's get these out of the way. That is a classic. I might bring that up. But I missed out on Watchmen. I've told this many times. I missed out on Watchmen simply because it was direct market only. You saw all of the advertisements for it. You were kind of curious on what it was. You knew the name. Where's number 12 at? And it'll pop up here. I'm sure number 12 is here somewhere. And but you did have an alternative, and I was also like 13, maybe 12 and 13 when things like that started. And I believe this series was probably halfway over by the time Watchmen probably got started, or it was well on its way. But this was published first, right? But on the newsstand, you had Squadron Supreme by Mark Grunwald, right? And I started years ago. I was going to do an issue by issue review of this, the show what happens when uh, the heroes became proactive. And what they did is, due to the overmind of villain, apparently on this Earth of Marvel claim in their Ultraverse, where we have like Marvel's version of the Justice League, the Squadron Supreme, not the Sinister. That's a completely other team from another dimension, or however you want to talk about it. But anyway, this is an answer to the Justice League for the Squadron Supreme. And Mark Grunwald came in there and he wrote a very cool story of a America that is just economically destroyed. And because of the overmind, apparently a lot of people are susceptible. That's what I was trying to get to with having their mind taken over and everything like that, right? But anyway, the heroes decide to become proactive, and they decide that they're going to take over America for a year and implement a bunch of programs. And they set goals like there'll be no crime and nobody's going to be hungry and they're going to get rid of guns and all this stuff like that. And what is interesting is Nighthawk, the Batman of this world, if you will, is actually president. Kyle Richards, I think his name is. He's president. He's the United States president. And he actually thinks about taking a bullet when the Squadron Supreme are going to be on the front steps of the Washington Monument or something in Washington and stuff. They're going to come out and they take off their mask and they're telling everybody what they're going to do. And he's thinking about assassinating Hyperion with a whatever his version of kryptonite is. I used to know these things off the top of my head, and he decides not to do it. And right away, you kind of get the idea of like, okay, Batman is our version of Batman here. It's just not on board with this. This is supposed to be a good thing. And as you go issue to issue, this sort of takes place in real time. A month goes by between issues for the most part. You kind of see how they're kind of stripping away your rights without you knowing it. And we have characters die along the way, a lot of characterization. There's behavior modification going on where they decided to rehabilitate criminals that are going to go ahead and make this machine that will make it impossible for them to commit crime. They pretty much become servants, but they try to say they have free will until Green Arrow, our Green Arrow character, has noticed that the Black Canary character, they are a couple in real life, is starting to have eyes for our Hawkman character. So he sneaks her in there without her knowing and makes it to where she loves him and only him, and he ends up taking off because she becomes obsessed with him, takes away her free will. Of course, we have our villains come in, and they become members of Squadron Supreme. The team grows. They start getting rid of guns. They start making pacifier guns, and they're freaking out. So they're freaking out so bad that Batman, Nighthawk, goes into another dimension with a Dr. Fate-like character providing the transportation there, where he meets Captain America, all about the rights, because Mark Grunwald was also writing that. And we get a very Batman 1960s, a 50s Batman, 60s Batman kind of story here with the giant typewriter and the villains who have decided to have free will. They're going to rush away from that dimension themselves and come here so they can be free. But he ends up bringing them back, and we end up getting sort of an outsiders group that goes into it. Now this is like Dark Knight Returns on a smaller level, if you will, with the government and things like that. But anyway, all things go to hell. The Batman ends up making a deal with a version of Lex Luthor, if you will. and they all come together with this scientific knowledge and stuff. And in issue 12, they have a big blow up, and you kind of find out that Kyle Richards kind of says, yes, you guys have set up a system here with no checks and balances, and you've taken away people's rights without them knowing it. But what about the next people that come over? Are they going to be as ethical as you are? You have no checks and balances and stuff like that. And you find out this was a horrible thing. So there was a time that Marvel was, at least Mark Grunwald, there was somebody that you didn't know their political affiliation, but they wrote a story to where you can make up your own mind about things. It wasn't preachy. It was like, here's what happens, here's what it would look like, here's what he says, here's what they say. And I think it's just fantastic, right? Now, politically, and I didn't know we were going to go down that. This is something that, in politically, I thought this was just very cool. That's how you tell a story that's politically charged, in my opinion. Granted, I was 12 and 13 when that came out, but I understood it. I understood what was going on. A lot has not changed, and it didn't influence me. I understood it. And in that time, we had two books come out that were heavily influenced by that. Kingdom Come, uh, Alex Ross, Mark Wade, and The Authority, Stormwatch Into the Authority, the Warren Ellis verse, if you will, right? And I absolutely loved the stuff that Warren Ellis was doing with Stormwatch, and then Stormwatch Volume 2, you know. And then because Wildstorm or whatever the image company was, he came into the offices one day and he saw how low the print numbers, the sales were for Stormwatch, and he was like, "Why did you keep printing this?" He's like, "Well, we're fans. We wanted to know how the story ended." And right then and there, he decided that he was going to give them something as sort of a reward for their loyalty that was going to be huge. It's amazing how he knew he could do that, and we got the Authority out of that. You were around during the Authority. The Authority was everywhere, proactive heroes, and all this stuff like that. But Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch did the first 12 issues, and then from 13 to I think issue 29. I think it was 13 to 29. Let me look here. Yeah, 13 to 29. This is a hardback I bought almost 2 years ago that reprints the second half of that volume one of the Authority of their debut. I have most of the issues. Uh, Here's the, sorry guys. I think this is an absolute great package of a story here. Here's the dust cover that goes around. If you look up a YouTube, if you look at YouTube, the band YouTube on YouTube, I believe they had a video called, I think it was called Elevation. And if you watch that, it is heavily influenced by the Authority. The way they have them floating, they had the band floating around like this and stuff, right? Here it is without the slipcase. It is a hardback. It used to be a tradition in your videos to, if you had a hardback, you had to knock it, I guess, to prove it. And this is by Mark Miller, Frank Quitely, Art Adams comes in there, Chris Weston, a few other people pick up on it. And I'm 5 issues in. I've read the whole series, but the series came out in 1999, I believe. And I probably reread the first 12, maybe the first 3 or 4 parts of Frank Quitely and Mark Miller's debut, where they had a version of the Avengers that were just scumbags and SAS and all this stuff like that. And to be honest with you, thus far, it does not hold up. At least the second part, to me, does not hold up. That's a harsh criticism because it's cool, it's fun to read, but it's a little bit shock value after shock value. When you know what's going to happen next, it's just not there. You know, that's where we're at so far. I think I read up to issue 18 or 19. I still have, over half of it to go, probably, right? So we'll see how it's aged. So that was influenced by Squadron Supreme. I, for one, believe Squadron Supreme kind of holds up better than the second half of the Authority, if you will. That's what I've started reading to get through. And another thing that's been amazing for me to get through is we all know Alan Moore. Alan Moore. Oh, there's people here. Good morning. John Jones here. So let me take this moment here. Usually John is the first one here, but I think John has a life, I'm sure. But make sure you subscribe. I appreciate it. Thumbs up the video. It's kind of fun to talk about comics. Then kind of share the video. And if you're watching in the future and stuff, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for when I'm doing this. As we're getting into the late fall, winter months with the weather change and stuff. I'm going to be doing this a lot more, as you can tell, right? So anyway, backing up on this channel, I can talk about Alan Moore stuff. About 95% of what he's written, I think is fantastic. Even some of the stuff that I'm just sort of like, it was all right. It's still better than a lot of people's best out there. You know what I'm saying? Alan Moore's mediocre stories are better than a lot of people's best. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's a huge shadow to live in and stuff, right? But we don't always sing the praises of Alan Moore. We don't fanboy. You know what I mean? I can remain critical on things. And between the Ballad of Halo Jones, which I seem to be the only person who just does not understand that character, we have something else that I'm struggling to get through. The actual bag. I bought this probably I feel like I brought it, I don't know, over the summer or last summer or something. I don't know. And I am really struggling to get through his Voodoo. This was a 4-issue miniseries, I believe, back in the day when he was doing Wildcats in the 90s and stuff through Image. His Spawn Wildcats miniseries, this Violator thing, whatever else he did. He did Awesome Comics, Judgment Day with Rob Liefeld, reinventing his whole universe, all sorts of things and going meta. And he decides that he's going to take the character of Voodoo from the Wildcats, and we're going to he's telling a story of the origin of her name, of Voodoo, and things like that. It's a lot of stripper talk, a lot of race talk in it, things like that so far. And finally, we get to a murder. And I mean, I'm really struggling to get through this. I don't know if I have time for mediocre books, or maybe I just need a little bit more patience. You know what I mean? So if you've read this, let me know if it's fine to kind of pick up on it and stuff, right? But like I said, I'm just at the point where a fellow stripper has been murdered, and it's not escaping me that she actually sort of resembles voodoo. So I don't know if that's a thing or not. But I always kind of assume people remember the Wildcats in the 90s and the Image thing. And then I've been having these moments as I've bagging these comics, that the things that I haven't rebagged, they were 30 years ago. And that feels like it's gone by in a snap of a finger. So who knows? Who knows? So yeah, that's the two things I'm getting through. And I'm kind of finding out that cream does rise to the top and some things just sort of settle to the bottom for a reason. So let's see who is here, guys. Great to see Paolo again. Everybody say hello to Paolo. John Jones. Still need to read that Maxi. I think it's cool. I mean, it's an old school comic book with a little bit more substance. It makes you think. And as always, the more you're into comics, the more little comparisons to DC characters is fantastic. It's part of the fun. And if you miss it, you miss it. It's not a big deal. Paolo is here. Great to see you, brother. Okay, Comic Crack. He knows what I'm talking about. Comic Crack. You got to knock on a hardcover. It's mandatory. Yes, yes, that is old school, and it should be new school. We got the Library 88. I still have the need to read the Authority. I think it's all that Warren Ellis stuff, except for DV8. DV8. I feel like it's a niche kind of thing. You're either going to like it or you're not. Okay, I never hated it, but I was just sort of like, Okay, DV8, Gen 13. I saw some trendy things in there, maybe a little tropey for the 90s and stuff. But anyway, you might like. But I think that it's fantastic. You got to remember, it's Warren Ellis. There's this subtext of political stuff in there, a little shock value, but it serves in the story a bit more. Then he builds up through things, and then by the time that the aliens, the H.G. Geiger aliens get to come in, that's when everything took off. I think a lot of it was great. So yeah, I love that stuff. I have all the floppies. Got a couple of trades, so I can just pull them off the shelf every now and then. Yeah. And I'm somebody that I'm very disappointed because I finally was able to collect all of Warren Ellis's Excalibur books from the 90s before he was a superstar and he was on his way. And oh my goodness, I'm so disappointed with those books. So yeah. Squadron is better. Okay, then I'm good. I've read that. Oh, I've read The Authority. I have some crazy gaps in my reading. I'm sitting here describing Authority to Library 88, and he said he's read it. Squadron is better, and he has a question mark. Okay, then I'm good. I've read that. um, Stick to the Ellis Hitch. Paolo Costo says stick to the Ellis Hitch issues 1 through 12, and you don't need any more Authority. And yes, I think that holds up. Um, And then Paolo also agrees that Squadron is better. Kingdom Come is more like Squadron Supreme when it comes to the morality of heroes taking over. The Authority has the same type of heroes, but they're unapologetic about it. Yeah, yeah. And there's a whole show that we could probably do, Paolo, if you're up for it sometime, where we take Squadron, Kingdom Come, the Authority, even possibly the elite, and things like that that are have come out of that. I mean, it's just amazing to me that's what I love about comics. You can actually see the tree branch out from Squadron Supreme. You know what I mean? So good stuff, man. All right. So as I'm digging through some of the stuff and reading some of this stuff and getting ready to bag some of the stuff, some of the things that I have found down here as I've been purging comics. I have some comics over here about, I don't know, I sold some comics. I did a little small con around here, did very well, which really surprised me. So I have those over here, but as I'm digging through stuff, I find other stuff. On this channel, the first video that really came together and did well way back like in 2000, I think 11, 10 or 11, was John Byrne's She-Hulk. You can put Howler Mouse, John Byrne's She-Hulk and see that video. That's where everything came together. The presentation, talking about the books, how I was set up and everything like that. But there was a day probably around 2013, 12, 13, maybe 2013. Let's say that. I don't know. I should have looked it up before, where I had a video go viral. I was dating someone. I was in my kitchen waiting for them to show up because we were going to go geocaching. And they were so late, I looked around. I just had recently moved to this new house that I was renting at the time. And I saw a box, and it was my movie Thunderbirds toys. And that was the first one to go viral. Like, I was like, the last time I looked, I think it had 12,000 views on it. And a lot of those views happened within the first 3 or 4 days. And of course, I don't know if you can see this, but that is Tracy Island. And I kept referring to it as Thunderbird Island, right? So I found a few things. I took the batteries out, thankfully, but I don't know if you like the Thunderbirds. Here, old Gary Anderson. But yeah, I'm finding I had a few of these packed away, and luckily I took the batteries out, so this one would make sounds of the Thunderbirds. We have, what is that? Thunderbird 5? I don't know. That's Thunderbird 2. I can't remember what number this one is. But anyway, the drill, if you will. Yeah, that goes with Tracy Island there, but it rolls off because of the actual wheels. And some more of the Thunderbird toys. Here's Thunderbirds 1. Yeah, yeah. So I have all kinds of this stuff laying around. When that movie came out and I was able to pick up a few other things, I was grabbing Thunderbird stuff on sale left and right. Yeah, here's a die-cast vehicles that I've never opened, but from the years of moving around and having this shoved in a drawer and stuff, it's technically open, so it could happen. I may have to get a shadow box. The other thing that I found is for you guys who can go back 12 to 15 years later, I found the original Kirby knife. The Kirby knife, I used to have a picture of Kirby's head cut out and glued to the tip of this. But the Kirby knife is what we did our unboxing videos when those were still a thing and still do, right? We would whip the Kirby knife out to do anything that needed our cutting. And the Kirby knife actually had its own fan following there for a little bit, which I thought was really cool. The other thing I found, who knows how long I've had this, and you hear there's stuff in it. But yeah, I think this was a Christmas gift to me. Sunday mornings, much like now, you at 9 and 9:30, you had Underdog. Okay, that would play in syndication, and then you would have a little bit of Rockin' Bullwinkle, which eventually turned into Tennessee Tuxedo. And a little bit earlier in the day, you would have a show called The Great Space Coaster. So somewhere along the line, this probably came from a Hallmark store, but yeah, nostalgia brought back lunchboxes like this as collectibles. And somebody got this for me for a Christmas gift, I'm sure. But inside of it, I have found my Johnny Lightning Batman models that I had to make, if I remember correctly. It's the Bat Boat. Here's the Batman Tim Burton Batmobile. These are die-cast metal. These were always cool to find. Our classic 66 Batmobile. Now, I used to have a huge, I sold them in about 2015, But I had a huge collection of Batmobiles, Johnny Lightning, Hot Wheels, anything that came out. Here's the classic one where the wheels have come off from the 40s, but that's okay. The bottom, I can screw it back on. The bottom and the axles and wheels are all still in there, so I can repair that easily with just a screw. That's what's cool about these die-cast models. They don't break. You just need to screw them in a little bit better. Use WD-40 to get them apart. So yeah, it's always cool to find things like that when you have things in every nook and cranny, right? Okay. John Jones says that would be an interesting conversation, Paolo, if we did that. We could. I say we get a few people in there and we do that. Thunderbirds was way ahead of its time. Some of the best television that has ever come out of England. I totally agree. What else do they have? Fireball, a few other things like that. Yeah, but that was one of the cool things about having Showtime when I was a kid. Everybody else had HBO. They had their Fraggle Rock. We had Showtime that had the Thunderbirds, some anime in the early days that you didn't see anywhere else, and when it was still a rare thing to see in America. And Thunderbirds and Fairy Tale Theater, Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater. When everybody else was having, they got to watch Fraggle Rock. I'm over here watching Fairy Tale Theater and Thunderbirds. I don't know. Maybe I won. And Stingray, thank you. That was the other one in the back of my head. I was trying to stall to remember. Stingray, yes, yes, yes. Good stuff, man. Okay, guys, and I'm going to show you a little artwork here that I found as I'm going through these books here, right? Okay. So, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Something else I found. If somewhere along the line in one of my many videos of the past, I bought a book, a comic or something, and in the back of it, it had a handwritten list by whoever owned the book of comics they were trying to get. And I always keep things like this. I always find things in books, secondhand books, dollar books in the back of them. I found homework. I was with Josh at a comic book convention a couple months ago, and I whipped out a book, just happened to look at the back of it, and it was a kid's homework, that was stuck in the back of the bag and board. And this was somebody's list of books they were wanting, that they were looking for. And what's so funny is I have most of these. Now that is love. This is the old school stuff that you did. Now, I'm not being nostalgic, I'm not being nostalgic, but I'm just saying this is when you were dedicated to your hobby, the world. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian, red nails. Check, check, check. Looks like they found a few things. And so help me, if there's any way to get this back to the person, I would do it. But it looks like they're a bit of a marble nut here. Yeah. Spider Man, Conan, Red Sonja, Alpha Flight, things like that. That's fantastic. I always keep things like that. Right. And I'm missing. Huh. I found a journal. I'm not going to show what's on there, but yeah, that's the one I was missing. Oh yeah, and look at this. In this journal, it always had there's a checklist of my own, as I was saying. That's cool. Let's see what else is in here. Oh yeah, yeah. So this is a combination of some of my artwork. I haven't really the last year and a half has flown by, right? And I really need to get back on these. But for fun, I started doing these little trading cards on Bristol board, 2x5, 3x5 alcohol markers, right? And I've just been doing things that caught my eye, things that I enjoy. So we have Wizards, Thunder the Barbarian. Okay. I don't know what happened to that aerial. A little bit of Space Ghost, and then that Beetlejuice is right off the back of a DVD set that I had sitting around. And then this shade, that is off of a shade. The shadow, this is directly off of an annual, but I added a little bit of Sienkiewicz to it. I tried to have the glare of the light kind of make the shadow's hat, if you will, right? Tried to play around with some of that. Yeah, decided to kind of experiment. And for some reason, I haven't done any more since then. I've done other art projects, but that's about it. And then when we get in the back of this, apparently I have a full set of the Daredevil, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Gardner as Elektra movie, uh, trading cards. I seem to have some kind of memory of buying these, but I have no idea where. So, yeah. I'm sure that if I found them, they were probably $5 and stuff, right? So it's kind of cool to find stuff like that. Okay, so things that I kind of need to go ahead and probably rebag. Like I said, this is mainly, if you can hear me here, this is mainly a Grant Morrison box that I'm going through, right? But like I said, I have that what I just shown, the Squadron Supreme books that I collected off the rack month for month. And then we have these. These look like they may all right, but I have two sets of We Three. Um, Three issues. This is just a fantastic story. They look all right now, but these white covers you have to be careful with. Now, if I had Mylar, I would probably go ahead and Mylar these, right? So that's the problem. How I ordered the bags, I'm going to assume that this story came out, I don't know, 23 years ago, maybe less than that. Trying to see if there's no date on it and stuff. So maybe we're all right. But those white covers, once they're gone, they're gone. There's no saving them. Okay. The other things I'm kind of trying to figure out is the last one of the live shows I've done in this past week. I went through some What If books. I've had these as they came out since the 90s. And there's things in here that could end up being collectible one day. You just never know, right? Like, what if the professor of X-Men had become the Juggernaut, right? That's a Jim Lee cover, some of his earlier X-Men work, probably while he was on the book, things like that. So I don't know if I should rebag all of these, but probably definitely the first, I don't know, 18 issues, maybe a year and a half, and then subject myself through that. And then kind of go through and see what bags are still surviving and in pretty good shape, right? So like this is an older bag, but there's no stickiness, there's no discolor to it, but you still got to watch, right? And let's see what else we have here. Well, we're definitely going to rebag 2 or 3 of these, right? Oh, there's a brand new bag. Apparently, I've already started, right? But yeah, the Dead Man issues of Phantom Stranger, a little Bronze Age there, right? I don't know why these haven't been rebagged. Um, when I bought these two, they were in new bags, so I don't know what's happened with these. But yeah, that Bronze Age stuff definitely going to get rebagged. I'm hoping you guys agree with that. There's another stack here that I was wanting to talk about. Oh, is this it? Oh yeah, here it is. So as we go way back, like 20 years ago, I was really surprised how divisive this series seemed to be. And then as time went by, it wasn't really divisive. It was the first encounter I have of a very small. Uh, it was smaller. It wasn't. I don't want to say minority, but it was still a very loud, small group of people. Is what I realized, right? Because I'm like, a villain does some villainous things. Um, I just didn't really get why. I'm still missing to this day why there are that some people don't like this. I totally get. I read it. It was all right, not my thing. But we're talking about like sheer hate with what happened, right? But it was Identity Crisis. Michael Turner covers, multiple covers, articles coming out before it came out of Rags Morales sitting there showing him his work, how much character work he did into this, how he had to let Brad Meltzer know that he wasn't going to go buy his script in a few places because he can emotionally uh, have these characters portray more emotion his way. And after Brad Meltzer saw a few pages, he was like, okay, I got it. I get it now, and things like that. But there's an assault in here, right? That is just horrible, right? And we're not justifying it by saying a villain does a bad thing, but that's what I'm trying to say is that this gets into mind wipes, much like the Squadron Supreme did. This gets into messing with people's heads and morality and ethics of being a hero. Injustice Gang, with their savage, was it the Injustice Gang? Anyway, there's been so many names, but they harken back to Justice League of America, a giant issue. I can't remember if they were 80-page giants or 90-page, 100-page giant. I have it like number 111. They went back and the bad guys had a satellite all on their own and stuff, right? And we ended up having like a lot of death. We had Deathstroke finally take on the Justice League. You know what I mean? We had Captain Boomerang have a son. We had Tim Drake's father pass away and get killed, right? This had ramifications. A lot of the times, you would say, they used to put on these comic books like this changes everything. Nothing will be the same again. And it was the illusion of change, right? Well, this actually did it, okay, for a few years, right? The only real thing that really came out of it I didn't like was Batman was super paranoid because Zatanna and some of the Satellite League mind wiped Batman, because he was not going to go along with what they were doing, get into a little bit of a human rights issue and stuff, right? But it made him super paranoid, and somehow he puts up a satellite, and we get the whole OMAC nanobite thing, which I was just sort of like, we'll just let that pass on by. It's come and gone, right? Also, people were mad about the mystery. I was one of the ones that was mad about a mystery. When you assume there's a mystery, who killed Ray Palmer? Oh my God, who died in here? Oh my goodness, somebody died. I'm going blank here. Oh, who killed Sue Dibney? Right? Excuse me. Right? You think you can follow along with the mystery and find clues to be able to solve it, and the whole thing is solved because Ray Palmer recognized a pair of footprints on a brain. Tiny, tiny little footprints. That made me mad. Like I did not have a chance of trying to figure this out. Right? So it kind of gave them a feet of clay, took away a little bit of innocence. But I've grown up after the grim and gritty '80s and stuff. Right? So, on its merits, I can both defend it and point out flaws, but people absolutely hated it, right? Then there was a special that if you were, Brad Meltzer, Judd Winnick, the two writers, Brad Meltzer writes novels, legal battles, if you will, mysteries and things like that. But he also was a roommate with Judd Winnick in college, and they're apparently in the same era that I'm from because they're tapping a little bit of Teen Titans, George Perez, Marv Wolfman, Batman: The Outsiders by not Mike W. Barr, Jim Aparo, and we get the fact that the reason I'm bringing both of those up is that we get into the Judas Contract. Deathstroke is here. He did terrible things to Tara, even though Tara was underage, but she was no victim if you read the story. She was actually so evil, even Deathstroke was like, that gone. Like she was a little bit much for him. And then, things happen. And now we have Geoforce. At the time, this is about 20 years, a little bit over 20 years, where we finally see Geoforce, who was Tara's sister, uh, get a hold of Deathstroke. You know what I mean? Like we're kind of like there was a lingering thread. Why did Geoforce not go after Deathstroke and stuff? So that's what I'm trying to say. If you're from that era, there was a lot of things they were tapping there and stuff, right? But this thing had people hating it. And then there were people that were like Sue Dibney and Elongated Man fans, right? They were more or less like the I don't know if you've ever seen the Thin Man mysteries and stuff, but they were like that was sort of them in the superhero world, is how a lot of people saw them. I never saw Sue Dibney really be anything in the comics per se, character wise, personality wise. They were a backup feature in Flash, and then until Justice League Europe, and then like she had a purpose and stuff, right? But what I think kind of happened here. Oh, here we go. Oh, thanks for the card work on the art there. Thank you. John is here. Let me take this moment here to that's my cue as always. Make sure you have subscribed, thumbs up, hit that bell. Great to see you guys, right? But when it comes to Identity Crisis, I think what happened is, at least it played a part in it, is I don't know, the late '90s. There was a website by Gail Simone, of all people, the Library 88. Thanks for the education on Identity Crisis. My collection is mostly 40s to the 80s, so I love these thorough crash courses you give on newer stuff. P.S. Rebagging Bronze Age is essential. Thank you, man. And like I said, that was by pure memory on that. So I appreciate you commenting on it and stuff like that. But as always, check it out yourself and see what you think, because I'm going by pure memory here. But one of the things that happened a couple years before that I think people got on board with is that there were message boards going around, right? I know that we spoke about Warren Ellis. Well, that's where Kelly Sue DeConnick and who was she married to? I've already forgot. I stay away. Kelly Sue DeConnick is not one of my favorite people in any way, shape, or form. Especially, I was near her at Here Is Gone. So I know for sure. Oh God, I can't think. Anyway, supposedly Kelly Sue DeConnick and her husband, who is a much more prolific comic book writer, in my opinion. They met on those message boards in Warren Ellis's group, but there was another one by Gail Simone that was going on called Women in Refrigerators. And if you've not heard of this, I'll be very surprised. But the Women in Refrigerators was the whole concept of where they went through comics, mainly Green Lantern, the Kyle Rayner early Green Lantern issues. I had the actual issue where what sparked it, supposedly, allegedly, was the fact that Kyle Rayner's girlfriend was killed by Major Force and shoved into a refrigerator. And editorial had to go in and ask the artist to close the refrigerator a little bit more. It was a little gruesome and stuff. So this sparked a website. Gail Simone, I think she was like a hairdresser at the time or something. Who knows? Aspiring writer, obviously. And with this website, it was the whole idea that women in comics are just used to put a man forward in books. And and it gave a list of things that happened in comics that were terrible to women. And yes, those things were terrible to women. But my problem with it is the fact that what about all the trauma that a lot of these characters go through, male and female in there, right? I'm not going to sit here and dismiss the list they met, but it was cherry picked because you were dismissing all of this thing. Let's take, I mean, really think about it, right? Um, and we'll keep kind of realistic and stuff, right? Think about it. You are a little kid. You have gone to a movie that you probably begged your parents to take you. You love the movie. You're playing. Your parents are behind you. It's dark. They go down an alley, and now they're shot and killed right in front of you as pearls go flying in the air. Um, that'll mess you up. What about all the beatings that these heroes have to take? What about Matt Murdock being blinded? Having no mother as a kid and things like that. A lot of these characters are traumatized as a kid. Peter Parker, they constantly tortured him uh, personally and stuff, and the fear of Aunt May dying, his only family contact and stuff, and his uncle Ben passing away, his uncle being shot. That's what I mean. It's a level playing field out there, guys. Sorry, you know what I mean. And so I've always thought this was horrible, right? I was like, what a it was like it felt like a blackmail tactic to me, ideology, a blackmail tactic, and I'm always going to hold that opinion, right? And but the other thing that happened with this is that I just saw something on Twitter, and I have no idea why I got alert X if for you people who are in the present, but I have no. I can show you. I don't follow this, but I keep getting Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone alerts, even though I don't follow them. Right? Not that I have to justify anything. Don't get me wrong, but see if that comes up. So I get an alert. There we go. I follow James Gunn, don't get me wrong, podcast problems, things like that. But can anyone mention a patriotic thing she's ever done? I don't follow Gail Simone, right? So I happened to look at this and she's complaining about Melina. She shared a link that Fox News put up there. Now, politically, I really could give a crap. Let me put it out there just for what's out there, right? I guess I would have to consider myself an independent. I was always a little center Democrat, conservative, maybe a little center liberal over the years. And as things happened, and that the 10 years ago or something, it just sort of left me behind. But my problem, not my problem, but my view is this: I would have to be independent because I've always held that a bird, the American eagle of America, can only fly with two wings. So there's a little here and a little there. And we got to meet in that middle, compromise, do something, find a win-win or something, right? And all that stuff like that. And nowadays, it's like a hall of mirrors. You've got to see the reflection of all the faces looking at you. And it seems like if you want to be, it seems like it's the extremes that seem to be out there. And in a hall of mirrors, philosophically, what that means is that everything has got to be said that reinforces what you think, your opinion, no other opinions and stuff. And what happens is it becomes your identity. And then when there are any ideas that challenge your viewpoint, you become very brittle and childlike and you lash out. And that seems to be the thing now, right? So Gail Simone has gone after a woman because she's married to the president on here. And she's saying, what has she ever done that's been political? And she hates her husband. And she hates this and she hates that. She goes, can anyone mention a patriotic thing she's ever done? She hates her husband. She hates the White House. The only decent speech she's ever given was plagiarized almost entirely. She had zero initiatives of consequence. What's the award for loitering? All because Fox awards Melania Trump as Patriot of the Year, right? I could give a crap about any of that, right? But what I find is that it's interesting that it's okay for Gail to attack a woman, despite 30 years ago or less, she had a whole website about women being victims and people going after women and doing terrible things to them to move them up. So I wonder how many Twitter followers she's going to gain by attacking a woman. I don't know. I don't know. That's why you don't play that game. You know what I mean? You don't play that game. You open yourself up. All right. Hey, Dennis Hayes is here. Great to see you guys, right? So what else do we have here, right? So in the box, I lost this for years. Number 648, 46 of Secret Origins. I've replaced it. I have a box upstairs of Secret Origins. We got what else is in there? Official, the DC Who's Who, but I have a collection in separate boxes of official handbook reference material, the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, both volumes, the deluxe and things like that. The Who's Who and the updates, the Secret Origins, the old Wanted series, little bits and pieces there. One shot specials that came out in the 90s of Who's Who in the Indieverse. Official handbook of the Conan Hyborian Age Conan universe. That was a one issue. Star Trek, DC put out Who's Who in Star Trek Part 2, 5 or 6 issues of Who's Who in the Legion. I keep this stuff, right? And apparently I decided to take this one issue out of Secret Origins, put it in with the Grant Morrison stuff, and I could not find it forever. I also did this with the Doom Patrol. I decided to put this with the Doom Patrol. This was when John Byrne was on board and he got to pencil the Doom Patrol. I guess they go with the X-Men version of the Doom Patrol and the similarities between the X-Men. The Chief is in a wheelchair. Professor Xavier's in a wheelchair. And they were outcast and things like that and weird. I have always seen the Doom Patrol be more of a Fantastic Four thing than an X-Men thing. I just have, right? So, of course, we're going to have John Byrne on the Doom Patrol. Good stuff there, right? So that just leaves a bunch of extras, right? I already went ahead and bagged my Doom Patrol. I followed this probably all the way up to Invasion, and it started disappearing from the stands. But this is my beat up first issue of Doom Patrol. Paul Cooper Berg, if that dude would write as well as he curses and stuff online, we would have had Garth Ennis 10 years before Garth Ennis, right? But yeah, it was the storyline was weak and stuff, but the absolute beautiful art of Steve Lytle kept me around as a kid. And they were 75 cents. And like I said in the past, I always bought teen books to get more heroes, right? And then eventually a man named Eric Larson came on the book, gave it some energy, and it was really wild to kind of like try to decide if I liked Eric Larson or not. Nobody knew what was going on with him because like it was super cartoony, but the guy could tell a story. There's a lot of energy, and he came up with a character named Shrapnel that he actually went back and forth with DC on, right? But as you can see, this book, I'm telling you, man, this is more like X Force before there was X Force years before. You know what I mean? Blows my mind. What gets me is that my favorite Angel outfit actually looks like the one Tempest here is wearing, almost the same colors. Give him black boots and give him the wings. And, I was so tired of that stuff, right? And yeah, Graham Nolan eventually came on the book as an artist, but I have all of these from when I was a kid. Who knows when I bagged them last? And I think these are the ones, some of these have been bagged and have not been bagged, right? And then I had the entire run of the Grant Morrison. I've already done my Animal Man, Grant Morrison Animal Man. That's when I realized that these books were starting to get damaged inside of the book, inside of these bags, aging. But Crawling from the Wreckage, I have several issues of these. Grant Morrison's Animal Man and Doom Patrol really should be required reading at some point. So Simon Bisley covers. These are probably my doubles. Over the years, there's been covers or stories I absolutely loved. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. A couple of weeks ago or a month ago, I showed you the comic. I set the camera up on top of it. There's a video of Doom Patrol number 34 that's not that old on my channel. So yeah, I need to get these bagged and boarded. Luckily, I was able to. No, that is not Alan Moore, guys. That is Flex Mentallo. So yeah, I've got a lot of those to bag and board. A lot of these are doubles and stuff, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at. That's what we're going to be doing. And this is one of my absolute favorite covers of any comic ever. So I always buy these out of the dollar boxes. I'm always saying that I'm going to frame them and hang them up. Oh man, but yeah, just I mean that's so heavy metal, man. That is so heavy metal. Number 40, right? So yeah, there's all kinds of little keys in here. The first Prince of Flex Metallo. It gets into the idea of the philosophy of Dadaism. A little bit of 50s horror in there, like this painting Eight Paris, gigantic eyeball in the sky that harkens back to the Spectre and Doctor Fate for me and All Star Squadron, which was also a Golden Age story. So there's so much richness in there. It's just a variety of things. The Sex Men instead of the X Men, it was the Sex Men. The Scissor Men, the Candle Maker, Alice and her powers. So when the actual TV show came on. I cannot believe we got, what was it, four, maybe 5 seasons. I have them on DVD somewhere. The 4 or 5 seasons of Doom Patrol that we got, there were things I could not believe we were seeing. I saw Grant Morrison, I saw Silver Age stuff in there that I just never thought I would see. I mean, so it was really cool that they at least acknowledged or really pulled some of that out of those original comics, guys. So it was good stuff, man. So yeah, so we have that. I'm going to get this up. I got my She-Hulk and things done. And I think that's it, guys. That's a little bit of comic talk. I'm probably going to finish my coffee. I'm probably just going to decide which bags to use on what comics, and just plow through it. And you know what's going to happen? Probably before the end of the month, I'm going to end up buying another set of bags and boards. I really need to just invest in about 100 Mylar bags and just start going through the keys. Because as I do this, I am purging comics, and there's a lot of Grant Morrison I'm probably going to get rid of. Sebastian O, 3 issues. Okay, what else is in there? Sea Guy. There's 2 3 issue miniseries of Sea Guy. Things like that. There's just things that's time to let go. Joe the Barbarian. I need one more issue to complete it. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, yeah. As we bag and get rid of things, that's just a part of the hobby. You don't really see people talk about a lot on here. Used to be, if you're doing the hobby, if you're collecting comics, this is the part where things slow down and you have to take care of your stuff or get rid of it. What do we got here? Yeah, Dennis Hayes, commercials. John Jones, wasn't Doom Patrol carried on after Grant by DC Comics' first transgender writer? Oh my, Rachel Pollack is who you're thinking of, I do believe. And I'm trying to think who the artist was, because the artist was a sort of a big indie guy amongst certain circles and stuff. And I know. But yeah, it was Rachel Pollack, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you it has nothing to do with her transgenderism or anything like that. When it goes on merit, the series ended up getting canceled. I don't know what the person thought they were doing with that book. They took Rebus. See, that's what I mean. You had to have read the book and then see what she was doing. Uh, Rebus was a combination of negative woman and negative man. Let's just put it that way, all wrapped up together. And then Rachel Pollack came on and just was just too out there for people. I think I don't know if that was an editorial decision. I mean, you're following. The problem was that Grant Morrison did so much to Animal Man and Doom Patrol that they were like, how do you follow that? And whoever came up with the direction that Rachel Pollack was doing, the book ended up canceled. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Okay. By this time, we had Sandman, and I think Preacher was right around the corner. The Death miniseries, So maybe things just changed. Maybe things just changed. Who knows, right? Dennis Hayes, I switched to Comic Pro line, and man, they're so much better. Okay, I'm gonna have to make a mental note of that. Okay. Hey, the Sumerian. All right. Yes, Sumerian, you're late. You are late, but you can catch me on the rewind here. And Gore Vidal. Hi, Tim. Maybe keep Morrison's books. Never know when a retrospective may be in order, and you may need those books. I'm going back and forth with it, Gore. I was just thinking about you last night, Gore. I'm so glad you popped in here. Maybe keep Morrison's books. See, that's it. This is a box of Morrison's books. I have another box with his X-Men stuff and some of his Marvel Boy and stuff. Um, let me see. You guys may end up keeping me around a little bit longer. What do we have here? Yeah, here's some more Morrison stuff. Oh yeah, see, this is what I'm saying. I keep finding like random silver and bronze age stuff. You know, what do we got here? Yeah, another John Byrne Marvel 2-in-1. I think it's a John Byrne. Yeah, it's more John Byrne. Some free comic book day stuff that I thought I got rid of a bunch of these. Some asterisks. Little Flash Gordon. But we're getting into it. Yeah, I was finally able to bag 3 of the 4 issues of Bill Sienkiewicz's Stray Toasters. I still think that is just a beautiful cover. Oh my goodness. You know, my favorite Judge Dredd cover of all time, one of my favorite comic book covers of all time, Eaten Up by Mushrooms. I think it's where it's on the tongue. That was the touch that makes you have the chef's kiss with that one. But anyway, we have John J. Muth and Grant Morrison, the mystery play. That's due for a rereading. I was able to save this one, JLA Wildcats. And then I got to decide to if I want to bag this or not. I feel like Batman Legends of the Dark Knight it's a very common book. And this was the one where they had the rotating creators, creative talents come through, where everybody got a few issues or a one shot to tell us Batman story. And this one we had Gotham by Grant Morrison and Klaus Janson, right? It'd be 20 years later. When did this come out? 1990. 15, what was it? 15, maybe 15 years later, something like that. Grant Morrison would take over the Batman proper after being on the X-Men and many other books and stuff, mainstream books, a little bit of Flash in there, Invisibles, JLA. Okay. Stray Toasters forever. Absolutely. Okay. Yes, score is very tough. Paolo, only keep comics that aren't available in trade paperbacks, I say. I keep an eye out for that also. There's a few things. I was specifically thinking about doing a little video on like what's an actual rare comic, because a lot of the comics, if people are starting to realize that what's called rare is really not that rare. But there is a few books because of licensing that probably can't be reprinted. And I was going to do a little research in my trades for sure. But there's an issue of Stormwatch Volume 2 where I believe the Xenomorphs, the H.R. Geiger aliens appeared, and that led into the Wildcats aliens crossover, which gave us the authority because they wiped out a lot of members of Stormwatch, if you will. But they can't go back and tell that history because of licensing. You either have the books or you don't. So I was going to go do a little research and see if my memory is correct. Paolo, new Asterix graphic novel came out 2 weeks ago all over the world except America. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. It's set in Portugal. Nice. And Stray Toasters forever. Absolutely, Gore. Okay, guys, that is it. I've enjoyed this time. We've gone a little bit over than what I wanted, which is not a problem. I enjoy doing this with you guys. But as you can see, I got to get the mess cleaned up so I can just kind of relax before we start the grind tomorrow again with work. And the Sumerian says, we gotta have this with the Sumerian. Gothic was my first Morrison book I ever read. Read them over Christmas break and had the flu. I had fever dreams about the storyline and it freaked me out. Oh, that's great. read a, I love that. You read a Grant Morrison Batman story while you're having the flu and the fever dream comes. I can picture it. I can see it. That's awesome. Okay, guys. So one more time, guys, make sure you're subscribed. Give it a thumbs up. Share the video. Hit the bell. All those great things that we do, man. And guys, it's let people know that there's people out here like us that still read our comics and have some fun with this stuff, right? So everybody, be excellent to each other. Have a great weekend. Thanks for popping in. And like I said, hit that bell. I have the art table behind me. I'm actually thinking about maybe playing around and making a few more of these, and maybe talk while I'm doing them with the video. It's like I said, I actually date these, and the last one that I did was January of this year. So it's time to get back on this. All right, guys, later.